Hello and welcome to your next episode of Trash Talking with me, your host Stu, or you may know me as SMTV. So today we're going to be taking the time to talk about all the bands, literally every band that is playing on the Saturday at Download Festival 2024. Once again, I will be using the traffic light system, so if you haven't listened to the Friday episode, I highly recommend you go and listen to that first. But the traffic light system essentially is a red Download Dog is a band I will not be seeing under any circumstances. Amber Download Dog is a band that, if given the time and no other prior clashes, I will go and see. If it's a green Download Dog, this is a band that I will most definitely be going to see. Before I get too carried away and we get into the bands, I just want to take a quick minute to thank my wonderful, wonderful patrons. They are Lee Jeffrey, thank you very much, Sean Schofield, Alexander Toon, Vicky Rutter, and Chris Henderson. You're all legends, and I appreciate you more than you could ever imagine. If you too want to support me on Patreon, all you need to do is head to my link tree, which will be in the episode description. Go ahead and click on Patreon, and you can just use there's only one tier currently at the time of recording, which is £1, one great British pound. And essentially all this is just a token to show your appreciation to me as a content creator. It's greatly appreciated. It's not needed by any means, but it's just there as a little sign of appreciation if you do wish to do so. As I've just mentioned, Linktree. If you do go ahead and click on the Linktree, you'll also find my other socials. So there is Instagram, which is SMTV_IG, or TikTok, which is SMTV_TikTok. And of course, there is the YouTube channel. I am doing a few preparation videos as we go getting ever closer to download this year. If you haven't already, go and check out my Pack My Bag download video. Essentially, it's the ultimate download preparation video. And all I do is I go through my bag, which I use every single year, every festival I go to, and I go through meticulously all the things that you need to have a comfortable and enjoyable Download Festival. So I'd really appreciate if you go and check that out. I am also trying to get a good amount of subscribers prior to download. It'd be wonderful, it really would be wonderful, if I could reach the 500 subscriber mark. Currently sitting at 367 at the time of recording. And it may be a lot to ask in those 4 weeks now as we lead up to download, but if you haven't already subscribed, it would be really amazing if you went onto my Linktree, YouTube, and then click subscribe, because I love you. One final message before we get into the bands, I promise this is the last one, is our little sponsorship that we have in conjunction with Fat Frank. What a wonderful man he is. He has agreed to allow my listeners, you wonderful lot, to have 10% off your click and collect order for Download Festival this year. Now, all you need to do is go to fatfrankscampingshop.com, go to click and collect, add everything that you wish to purchase to your basket, and use the code SMTV10, that's SMTV10, and essentially that's just going to give you 10% off your basket, which, what more could you ask for? If you were going to do it anyway, and I'm giving you a cheeky 10% off, you just may as well do it. Then once you've placed your click and collect order, we're finally at download. All you need to do is go to Fat Franks, show them your confirmation email, and they will give you your order right to you. I think it's a brilliant thing. Fat Frank's always been there when needed. If there's ever something that you think, I haven't got my ... wellies, sleeping bag, roll mat, tent. If you really manage to forget your tent, head to Fat Franks and he'll sort you out. So, without further ado, no more introductions to be made. Thank you for taking the time to put on this episode of Trash Talking. So we need to ask the Trash Talking house band to run the rhythm. Yes, we've made it to episode 4 of Trash Talking, and today let's dive into the Saturday bands. Did you enjoy the last episode? Did you agree with any of the traffic light system that I did? Were there any that you thought, hold on a minute, he's given them a red and I've given them a green? Just go and tell me off over on Instagram. If you look for the corresponding post about that episode on Instagram, comment below on which bands I got it completely wrong for. Or, if you agree, if I was correct in your eyes with one of the bands, give me a nice little thumbs up and say, you know what, I agree. Because I'd like to think there's a few other people out there with the same taste as me. Okay? So, should we dive in? What we've done is I've taken each band, the stage they are on, and then their Spotify monthly listeners, if that is of interest to you. And then we've just got a little my opinion on the band. So not necessarily a description of the band or the band's bio or anything like that. It's just I've listened to the band, what comes into my head as I'm listening to them, tippy tippy tappy, writing away, and this is what I've got. So, shall we dive right in? Here we go. Bambi Thug. So these are playing on the Apex stage, and they have 264,515 monthly listeners on Spotify. So opening the Apex stage on the Saturday is, as I've said, Bambi Thug. I've never heard of them personally. And again, I'm using each band's artist's top 5 songs on Spotify to make my decision on whether I'm going to see them or not. So before I get into it, we've literally just had Eurovision, and I believe Bambi Thug were Ireland's, or maybe Northern Ireland. Sorry, I don't know what the geography is there. I believe that they were Ireland's submission. I didn't watch any footage at all. I ended up at Bloodstock's Battle of the Bands, Metal to the Masses, on the same night that Eurovision was on. So I'd like to think you'll let me off for that, other than Alex. I'm sure Alexander's going to think less of me for that, missing Eurovision. I apologise. So, haven't heard of them. Anyway, so the first song I listened to is Doomsday Blue, and it honestly didn't do too much for me, to be honest. I carried on listening. I'm not just going to listen to one song and place my judgment on that. So I did carry on listening, and a couple of them were coming on when I was listening to an overall playlist. So that I'll just search download playlist, or I'll make my own playlist. Tsunami and Egregore were half decent, in my opinion. Would I actively go and head to the main stage to see them? Probably not. But it's enough to give them an amber download dog. So as I've mentioned, if nothing else is on, if I'm not immediately busy with something else, I'll go and check them out. So Bambi Thug, get an amber download dog. And then up next is Harriet. So Harriet actually came recommended from Harry from Defects. Harry is the drummer for the opening band on the Friday, Defects. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. And if you haven't listened to the episode where I interview him, please do check that out also. That will be episode 3, and it will be obviously marked up Harry Jennings Defects. Go check it out. So Harry recommended Harriet. Harriet are on the Opus stage, and they have 46,009 monthly listeners on Spotify. So they are opening the Opus stage on the Saturday. Again, it's a band I've never heard of. It's quite common for the bands on this lineup. The ones that I have heard of, I'm obsessed with. The ones I haven't heard of, I've just said it, I've literally never heard of them. They sound good though. More suited for a tent, I thought. If you listen to the other bands that are playing the Dogtooth, for example, Harriet would literally fit in perfectly. Maybe if they played later on in the day when there's more people in the arena, I think they would have fit in, as I've just said, perfectly. Sound gloomy and almost horror-inspired, which made me think of Knocked Loose. They've got like these interesting intros and outros that are meant to be quite spooky. So if the sun's out, and of course it's going to be out because I'm saying it's going to be out, we're not having a wet one this year. I'm thinking these may seem a bit out of place. If you listen to them in the sun, maybe a bit of doom and gloom would be required. But they're heavy as fuck. But they're a band that I'm bound to enjoy. Again, I'll give them an amber. They're good, but if there's something else on, I won't miss them. Next up is Malavora on the Avalanche stage. These guys have 11,545 monthly listeners on Spotify. So they're sounding decent. There are too many Amber download dogs going on. So it's going to be one of them. It's going to be, let's just walk in a direction and that's where we end up. Or the guys that I'm with, if they think, oh no, I really want to see that band. You know what? Let's go and see that band. They remind me of an early 2000s alternative offering. They're sounding a bit like Incubus, Funeral for a Friend, you know, that kind of vibe, with a bit of punk thrown in for good measure as well. They're actually the winners of The Deal, which is Kerrang Radio's Battle of the Bands. They get a load of bands together, they put them online, and as far as I'm aware, I may be completely wrong here, I think that the audience votes, and then it's just in like a kind of league table. Each band gets through to a different stage, so on, until the winner gets to play Download Festival, but then also gets a record deal with Marshall Records, which obviously is the dream for any smaller band, unsigned band. So big congratulations to them. I can see them getting quite popular. They seem to have the whole package, which is they look the part, they sound good, and it just sounds modern. I'm doing air quotes here. You can't see, but I'm air quoting modern because what does that even mean to be modern anymore? I don't know. But in my ears, when I'm listening, that's just the vibe I get. There doesn't seem to be, what am I trying to say? Obvious influence from older bands, I think is what I'm trying to say. Maybe you understand what I'm saying, maybe you don't. Yeah. Really struggling to pick my first band for Saturday because they get an Amber download dog also. Up next is Celestial Sanctuary. They are on the Dogtooth stage and they have 3,117 monthly listeners. So Celestial Sanctuary is a heavy metal offering, from what I've heard. The top 5 bands again on Spotify. They remind me of bands like Machine Head or even a heavier Megadeth. Flicking through the top 5 songs on Spotify, they have a little hint of hardcore inspiration in there also. So I've listened to Trapped Within the Rank Membrane. So that's just one of their songs. They're good and they make me want to kick someone. So it's a typical Dogtooth offering, which is obviously good. Not blowing me away so much with giving them a green download dog. They're not like, oh, I need to see this band. But they're good enough to make me want to put an amber. So I'm really going to struggle with this morning, as I say. Who knows? If you've got a recommendation after those few bands that I've just mentioned and you're like, I've seen them before, out of the other offerings, I think this is the band for you, please do comment on Instagram on the post saying, Stu, go and see these, they are sick. Celestial Sanctuary, that band get an amber download dog. So we move on to the next section. So essentially that's the first section of bands that are going to play, and then we'll move into the next block. I'm not going to go through the times on this episode because it's all very much pinch of salt, and I don't want to say this band are on at this time and some of you guys maybe think, oh, I'm going to be there 35 minutes past 1 and that band's going to start and they're like playing the last song, so I'm not doing that this time. Moving on. Wargasm on the Apex stage. They have 301,272 monthly listeners. So, I know Wargasm. I'm not new to them by any means. Back when I saw these at the Download Pilot in 2021, I did genuinely enjoy them. That was my first... The first time I saw them was the Download TV that they did. If you remember that, when we were in lockdown, we had Download TV, and it was essentially just a live stream on YouTube. It wasn't great at all. It was just interviews that were extremely boring and some new songs that bands have put out, and it was just the music video for that song. But I love that they did it, but it didn't hit the mark, personally. So anyway, Download Pilot was the first time I saw them live, and I did enjoy them, and I did like them for a period. I did listen to them fairly often. Spit and is it Backyard Bastards? That song was in my frequent rotation of songs, let's say, and for some reason, yeah, I ended up talking to the singer and the drummer whilst Enter Shikari were playing at the Pilot. I can't remember much of it, to be honest. There's a picture of proof, but I can't remember actually having the conversation. Before some of my regulars get too worried and too carried away, yeah, I've since gone off them, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. Me and my wife went to go and see them support Neck Deep on one of their tours, and we were raving about them, saying, you need to see this band, get there early enough to see this band. And honestly, they were dreadful. So they've gone from this band that we really did rate, thought they were incredible, saw them that one performance, and we just went off them completely. This has happened for a few bands, to be honest. You see a bad performance and you just completely go off them. In my previous episode, I did mention bands, artists that seem like industry plants. In my eyes, Wargasm are the industry plant. I'm sorry if I sound harsh, but I just can't listen to them without imagining a room full of suits, like businessmen, drawing what the kids want these days. You know, we'll have these, there'll be a man and there'll be a woman, and they'll have all these piercings and tattoos, and they'll wear leather, and then she'll get her nips out, and everyone's going to be so, oh my God, she's got her nips out. No, it's just not interesting to me anymore. Red Download Dog, but... Oh, unrelated as well. Kind of related, I suppose. The lead singer is Glenn Matlock's son. Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols, of course. In an interview, Glenn Matlock actually claims that he found the success on his own, but I'm not sure if I believe that. If my dad was Glenn Matlock and I went into, I don't know, a rehearsal for a new band, I'd be like, oh yeah, my dad's Glenn Matlock. No shit, we'll take him on, and then he'll get us the gigs. Anyway, Red Download Dog. I'm not going to go on about him forever. Next band is Florent Black, and they are playing on the Opus stage with 62,585 monthly listeners. So the first thing that came to mind was, fuck yeah, brother. Proper, like, American, yeah, giving me heavy, like, Nickelback and Blackstone Cherry vibes. I say American, I'm pretty sure they're Scottish. I'm not big into hard rock anymore. I used to be well into it when I was a teen. But I do appreciate a good hard rock band when I hear one. Bird on a Chain is a catchy sing-along tune, and they've got everything that you want from a hard rock band. They've got chunky riffs, gut-punching drums, thick bass, slippery, sexy vocals, and then they do like the wah thing where they slowly bring the wah up, so it's like... I don't know if anyone got that, but yeah, it essentially like swipes through the frequencies like a low pass filter going. Anyway, I'm sure if you don't know what I'm on about, you think, what the... But yeah, it makes sense. So I tried to check them out on Wikipedia just to see where they were from and everything. I mean, I know I've just mentioned that they are from Scotland. They're not actually on Wikipedia. I don't know how I found something that isn't on Wikipedia. I thought everything was on Wikipedia, but I'm obviously wrong. I was wrong about a few things because it turns out they're from Wales as well. So I've obviously not done very good research on these guys. They're probably not even hard rock. They're probably like hip hop or something. I don't know. They sound great. I enjoyed myself. It's all good. They get a green Download Dog. Okay, next band. Hot Wax on the Avalanche stage. They have 56,722 monthly listeners. The punk, and I'll be honest, they're probably the only true punk display that I've come across on the lineup so far. I'm talking like old school OG punk before I get started on. Initially, because I say I'm listening to each band's top 5 on Spotify, I was pretty underwhelmed when listening to Rip It Out, but I persisted and listened to Drop. I feel like I've heard it before. It's big, it's shouty, and it's punk. I like it, but I don't love it. I must have heard it, I don't know, maybe even on Hot Wax. They sound popular, so I've probably heard them on Kerrang when I flicked Kerrang on. The rest of their offering is pretty light listening, which is odd, really. You expect them to be pretty concise. Would be good, easygoing background music around the house, but for me at download, it's not the one, I'm afraid. I like it, appreciate them as musicians, because musically they do honestly sound good. But am I going to be racing over to the stage? Probably not, so it's an amber download dog. Up next is Knife Bride. Here we go. They're on the Dogtooth stage and they've got 9,378 monthly listeners. So, first thing I heard when listening to this was some sexy guitar riffing, and that was on Fang Dummy. Reminded me of a riff that maybe Bless the Fall would put out. If you haven't listened to Bless the Fall, check them out. And it's Hollow Bodies, I think, off the top of my head, is the tune I'm thinking of. Musically, they sound really good and very similar to Bless the Fall. They're a bit slower, a bit softer, and they do have more clean vocals. I thought, let's stick with it. Okay. Bless the Fall is an incredible band. I think they're just making a comeback, actually. So I thought, they sound like Bless the Fall. I've said Bless the Fall so many times. I'm going to continue listening and hope they continue to sound like Bless the Fall. Carried on. And honestly, they're really good, man. Knife Bride are sick. Really good groove, thick and tasty mix, really awesome vocals. There's nothing not to like. I know quite a few of my listeners like Knife Bride as well, so they'll be very much agreeing. They sound a bit like Spirit Box and Bring Me the Horizon also. Bless the Fall, Spirit Box, Bring Me the Horizon. I'm sure enough of you are listening to that and thinking, ooh, I'm going to check them out. You should do, because it's an easy green download dog for me. They are lovely. Up next is The Hunter, which I don't know why, but this is a band that I'd heard of many a time. I think it's just from seeing local venues posting about them, saying that they're playing and everything, but I always thought they were very indie. So listening to them basically confirmed what I already believed. After listening to Knife Bride with big, chunky, heavy music, going to The Hunter, they don't sound like a download band at all. I can't explain what a download band is, but it's my podcast, so they're not they're not a download band. Sorry, they sound like 1975. I love the 1975, but I'm not about to go and mosh in the Dogtooth and then go and listen to 1975. So they get an amber, but it's very, very doubtful I'll go and see them. Sorry, The Hunter. Next is As in Hell on the Opus stage, and these guys have 35,135 monthly listeners on Spotify. So I don't really listen to Slayer, but what I am comparing them to is Slayer. I listened to them side by side, and I thought there's some similarities here. So if you like Slayer, you're probably going to like As in Hell. Do I like Slayer? Not necessarily. So they get a red download dog. Not a lot to say about those guys. Death by Romy is on the Avalanche stage, and these guys have 807,662 monthly listeners on Spotify. So another band, never heard of them, didn't know what to expect. I think that's the good thing about going through each and every band individually, because you never know what you're going to get when you click on that first song in the top 5. Could be anything. Click on these guys and it's drum and bass literally in your face. I mean, I say it's drum and bass in your face. I wish it was nice drum and bass in my face. They've got a song that comes on and I turn it off pretty sharp because it just makes me cringe. The one that's it's called Problems. I like Coke, but only if you're mixing it with Jack. And some stuff, it's just ugh. When I'm driving, I just have to turn it off. Easy one for me. It's a red download dog. Death by Romy. Toodle pip. Next up is Alt Black Era on the Dogtooth stage, and they have 52,790 monthly listeners. I convinced myself I didn't like these for some reason, but they're actually alright. I listened to Witch, and I enjoyed that one. It's like alternative metal, trap, hip hop. They were alright. The more, generally, you just hear one song and you think, oh, these are really good. And then you carry on listening and kind of fall out of love with them as quickly as you fell in love with them. Sometimes it grows positive and then starts to be negative. Sometimes it's negative and starts to be positive. Unfortunately, this is positive and ends negatively. So, Alt Black Era get a red download dog from me. Next is Low Lives on the Avalanche stage. These guys have 32,773 monthly listeners on Spotify. So if Shinedown, Skillet, and Papa Roach had a pop punk baby, that is what I believe Low Lives would be. Not a fat lot to say about them. Imagine that love child, and that's what you get. They're okay, just not inspiring for me to write much, and nothing really new or different from what's come before. So it's less of the naff, I don't like them. It's just I've heard this a million times before. I'd rather go and see something that I haven't. Sorry. Low Lives get a red download dog from me. Up next is Carver Louise, however you pronounce it, on the Dogtooth stage. 124,586 monthly listeners. So, 3 words to describe them. Metalcore. Tick. Neo-gothic. Tick. Filth. Most definitely. Tick. Musically, it sounds pretty good. Chunky guitar, punching drums with what sounds like programmed drum hits and a keyboardist doing their thing. So they're probably going to have a keyboardist doing those programmed drums on the side. Female vocals, clean during the chorus, but it gets pretty brutal during the verses, which is obviously what we want. There were 1 or 2 songs that hyped me up quite a bit, and then as soon as it gets to the chorus, it just seems to do a big fart, and all the build up was essentially for nothing, which is a great shame because you're buzzing off this big build up, and then it's just, and then there's nothing there for you to sink your teeth into. A song that made me feel like that was Under the Skin. I did move on and listen to Throne. It was a wild one because I actually got quite a lot of Prodigy vibes from it. So if Prodigy had to go at making a metal album, essentially musically that's what I'm getting. That's Throne. Give that one a listen. I've listened to so many playlists leading up to download, and I hear stuff that sounds quality, comes and goes, and I actually don't know what it is. Normally, I would look at like my little player in the car, and I'll be like, I'll make sure I remember that one, but I always forget. And this one song, Opportunista by Carver Louise, is one of the songs that made me think, hold on, that's all right. So go and obviously try and listen to the top 5 if you can, but Opportunista is thick. It's good, man. Trust me. Pretty limited selection at that time, actually in the arena, so I'm going to go ahead and give these a green download dog. I just think the vibes that they're giving, Opportunista by itself, I'd like to see that song live. They're in the Dogtooth, it's going to be good. Up next is Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. On the Apex stage, they have 362,235 monthly listeners. I've never listened to them before. They played at the Download Pilot, and I remember the best thing that I heard was a cover of the Ace of Spades. Other than that, I honestly couldn't care less, to be honest. I'll read what I've written here. I've never been a listener of them, and I'll listen to them now, and there's nothing that's inspired me to think, I'm going to listen to these. They're okay, but that's it. They're just okay. They just make me think of a heavier Kasabian. It's all right. Crowbar gets my foot tapping, but other than that, they just seem to be branded as a download band. But it's weird. It's like they should be branded as a Reading and Leeds band, but they always end up at download. I don't know why. So, Red Download Dog, it is for Frankie boy. Next band is Bleed From Within. I love Bleed From Within. They're on the Opus stage and they have 375,880 monthly listeners. So I'd never actually heard of them prior to Download 2024. And it didn't take long after I was listening to them to realise how sick they actually are. Just from listening to like the first one or two songs. Really, really good. If I had to compare them to a band, it would probably be Parkway Drive, but post Atlas. So Aya onwards, if you know your Parkway Drive albums, Aya onwards is what these guys sound like. I really love Parkway. They're the band that got me into heavier music that I love now. But I'll happily have their music without Winston's whispery talking bits in the newer songs. If you listen to them, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how different they are from where they came from, if you can figure out what I'm saying. So you imagine Parkway without the whispery bits. That is exactly what Bleed From Within do. You could, in fact, or I think I remember them coming on the once and I thought, has Parkway released new music that I don't even know about? Click on and it was in fact Bleed From Within. So it's high energy, thick riffs, really good vocals throughout, and they're just bangers, trust me. They're great, and I'm sure they're going to be incredible live. They get a green download dog for me. Next band for you guys is Charlotte Sands on the Avalanche stage with here we go. 1,320,349 monthly listeners. I've got no idea what is going on. Listen to Charlotte Sands, and this could literally be Little Mix. I played this music for my wife, and she couldn't believe it either. Little Mix or Dua Lipa, Anne Marie. Take some top 40 dribble, and that's what this sounds like. So I honestly don't understand why it's so high up on the Avalanche stage. Like there's bands that have played underneath this music, if you can call it that, which is like they're obviously full bands that have like truly deserve to be on the lineup, but for some reason, Little Mix inspired Charlotte Sands gets a higher spot. I don't even know why. I even took the time to look at some previous lineups, and in around the same slots, we've had bands like Spirit Box, Holding Absence, and the Amity Affliction playing the Avalanche at this time. I don't get it. Please don't make this become a new trend. Just picking some popular TikTok musician, because I can't be arsed with that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will agree with me as well. It gets an obvious red download dog. So it's safe to say this next band is going to kick the shit out of Charlotte Sands. Figuratively, hopefully not physically. We have got Guilt Trip on the Dogtooth stage with 143,769 monthly listeners. And I genuinely don't think some people won't even need to leave the Dogtooth stage on some days. I've said that I probably won't do it myself. The incredible bands are just stacking up one after the other. I really do love Guilt Trip. They're signed to Malevolence, his label, MLV Ltd. And for obvious reasons, they sound very similar with a modern hardcore, like kick someone in the head, two stop till your vans have no soul left kind of vibe. They're brilliant. I love them. I just hope they don't clash with Bleed From Within, which unfortunately is looking the case. That'll leave with a very big, almighty dilemma. A dilemma that even Kelly Rowland couldn't help me out of. They get a green download dog, but with that potential clash, it may have to be an amber, but we're giving them a green for now. Okay. Up next is Baby Metal on the Apex stage, and these guys have an almighty 2,097,605 monthly listeners. I mean, what can I say about Baby Metal? I might get some hate, but I think they're a gimmick. I thought when I first saw them, I thought they were a gimmick that they'd be there 1 year and then they'd fade away, but they just seem to be coming back year after year after year. There's no denying they are entertaining to watch. The vast majority of the download crowd seem to be obsessed with them. But out of the 90 people you ask, 80 of them will say, "Yeah, I love them." Statistics aren't my best forte, so I should have said out of 100, 90% will say that yeah, they're good. If the vibe's there, if the rest of my group want to see them, yeah, I'll probably end up seeing them. I don't think there's really much else on at the same time as them. So, Baby Metal, despite me thinking you're a bit of a gimmick, you get an amber download dog. Up next is Carnival on the Opus stage. 181,124 monthly listeners. I don't know what it is about this band, but Carnival sounds so familiar for some reason. And they've been around since 1998, and I've heard of them, but I honestly couldn't say I recognised any of the songs that I was listening to. There's a few prog offerings on the lineup, and this is one of them. Prog isn't really my thing. They're making me think of Tool, and I'd rather not. So they're not for me. Not going to spend any more time on them. Red download dog. Up next is Rory on the Avalanche stage with 213,844 monthly listeners. It's not really my cup of tea in the slightest, to be honest, but I'm clearly not the target demographic here. If there's big dudes with beards in the front row, then fair play, but this music is definitely not aimed towards them. I feel it's definitely aimed towards a younger audience, like a I hate my mum and dad, I'm packing my bags kind of kids. It's a no from me. Red download dog. Next is Gel, G-E-L. I don't know why I said G-E-L. Do you spell gel any other way? I don't know. They're on the Dogtooth stage with 244,531 monthly listeners on Spotify. Dogtooth with another grimy hardcore punk offering. If I wasn't performing baby metal choreography at the main stage, giving it the fox and whatever it is they do, I'd probably check them out, but it's doubtful. They don't sound bad, it's just I feel as though we're going to end up at baby metal, so they get an amber download dog. Next is Slaughter to Prevail on the Opus stage with 1,074,095 monthly listeners. I love this band. This is a band that I'd never listened to prior to download. That's a lie. I probably listened to one or two songs, but never truly gave them the time of day. I'm not incredibly knowledgeable on them and the back catalogue and all that, so it's very much my first. I'm just dipping my toe into Slaughter to Prevail's pool of music. One of the few bands that I've actually listened to for the Saturday, and I actually wanted to hear more. Just listening to the set list is how I've done it for these guys. Other bands, I've listened to the top 5, but I thought I'll dip into the set list, put it on when I was driving, and it really surprised me because they weren't what I thought they were at all. I thought they were just deathcore, start to finish, just rapid music that you just can't make much sense of. But some of the riffs that I'm hearing and breakdowns, and it is just my cup of tea. I'm slurping on it and it's tasting good. Okay. Aside from how sick the sound, lead singer Alex the Terrible literally fights bears and cut his own face with a Rambo knife just to get a gnarly scar. So take from that what you will, but he seems a badass. The deathcore riffs that absolutely slap. and quite a few industrial sounding bits, and you just can't help but nod your head. So they get a green download dog. I will be seeing Slaughter to Prevail. Up next is No Offense, which I think is meant to sound like no offense, but I do not know. He's playing on the Avalanche stage, and he has 239.7 thousand monthly listeners. Took me back in time listening to this. Instantly made me think of Lil Chris. Does anyone remember Lil Chris? Some of you may not be old enough to remember Lil Chris. But for those that you do, you know what I'm on about. But those who don't, back in 2005, Gene Simmons of Kiss fame, of course, did a one-off series where he visited a school in the UK to help a group of kids make a rock band. Yeah, I just said that. How weird's that? They probably did this off the back of the success of School of Rock, the film, if you know, Jack Black. I'm pretty sure it went down well. I enjoyed watching it. I don't know if it did well everywhere else. Everyone at my school seemed to know who Lil Chris was, but he did end up being in the charts anyway. Lil Chris, he found minor success from the show and released a cover of We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off by Jermaine Stewart, and then released his own tune called Checking It Out. Did pretty well. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, but it looks like he released an album in 2015. What's that got to do with No Offense? I've got no idea. Sounds a bit like Lil Chris. It's not for me. I went off on a tangent there, didn't I? I do apologise. No Offense. Sounds like Lil Chris. It's not for me. Red download dog. Dying Wish Dogtooth stage. 179.9 thousand monthly listeners. I'll be honest, some of the bands, I click on them and it's, oh, yes please. And these sounded like an immediate yes from me. The amount of kick-ass, like female-fronted hardcore, metalcore, deathcore bands this year is incredible. You go back a few years and looking at the lineup, you'd have, honestly, top of my head, Ginger and Employed to Serve, and that's it. Previous years, that's all I could see. There's a tune called Coward Feed, Cowards Bleed. It's banging, trust me. Some seriously good breakdown action going on. Listening further, they sound quite 2009 screamo. You know, like the harmonising, riffing guitars, dirty screams, and then into like melodic, clean vocals throughout the song. Early Alexandria. Asking Alexandria comes to mind when I talk about that description. I rate it. I'll be seeing these guys on the Dogtooth before swiftly getting over to Slaughter to Prevail on the Opus stage. They land really quite well, so they get a green download dog. Up next is the almighty Enter Shikari. They're on the Apex stage, so they're getting their, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but their debut on the Apex stage being the main stage. Every other time I've seen them, I'm pretty sure they were on either the second stage or even I'm sure they've probably done the route of every stage going up and they've finally made it to the main stage. Well deserved, of course. So Shikari hold a special place in my heart. And like I say, they've taken quite a while to get up to where they are. And they are criminally underrated. That's the way it seems for me, anyway. I was never a fan in the first instance. With albums like Take to the Skies and Common Dread, it never really tickled my fancy, but this was at a time when I was very much into hard rock, so that makes complete sense. You can't blame me for that. After the release of Nothing Is True and Everything Is Possible, I was completely converted. I was a Shikari fan from this point onwards. That album came to us in the midst of lockdown, and with very sunny summer that we had, if you remember it. It was almost the very thing that was needed to add a bit of happiness to everyday life. Because let me tell you, this album was on repeat all the time in our house. I could go on and on about how that album has impacted us, but I could dive into every single song and tell you why individually each song is incredible. But We're here to hear about the band overall. If you haven't listened to that album, please do. If you're new to Enter Shikari, and you listen to maybe some of the top 5 and they weren't really for you, you definitely need to listen to that album. So it's Nothing Is True and Everything Is Possible. Okay, go and listen to them. Well, speaking of lockdown, as we just have, the first time me and my wife saw Shikari live was actually at the Download Pilot. And there's not many performances that I can remember so vividly. But this performance, I'm thinking about it now. I can remember exactly where we were standing. Incredible light show, whole crowd jumping as one. Masses of confetti during satellites. I'm sure tears were shed as we were jumping around, and that doesn't happen often with bands. It's probably going to happen again this year at Download. I love them. When I'm listening to on the way to work, I just think, wow, this is incredible. What they write the music about as well, it's just so real, and that's what I like about a band. Is these lyrics mean something. It's not just throwaway garbage. Shikari, I love you. Okay, I'll see you at Download. They get a green Download dog. Next is Tom Morello, and he's on the Opus stage with 5,321,442 monthly listeners. That listener count is... It made me think, what the hell? Honestly, I was going to say, surely that's taken into consideration like the listeners from Rage Against the Machine. But if you actually scroll through Spotify, nothing of theirs actually shows up. Obviously, if you go on This Is Tom Morello, then possibly, but actually in his listings, you don't actually see Rage Against the Machine. So that must be completely off his own back, which I'm very surprised with. Have I completely underestimated him as a solo artist? Maybe. Did I base this preconception purely on him as a boss battle in Guitar Hero 3? Yeah, you got it. That's what I thought when I read Tom Morello. I'm sure most people know he's the guitarist for Rage, but he's also been releasing his own stuff since 2007. Quite often, obviously being a guitarist, not a vocalist, he features a plethora of popular musicians. I'll name a few now. We've got Bring Me the Horizon, incredible. Mainskin, Baby Metal, The Pretty Reckless, Serge Tankian, Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, and Linkin Park. So as you can see there, we have got 2 bands that he has actually featured with, or vice versa, they have featured with him. So could we see some guest appearances? I think it's very possible. In terms of the bands that he's collaborated with, that's just a very small sample I've taken there. I could go on and on and on and on and on. If you're not a Rage fan, I'm sure everyone's a Rage fan, so if you are a Rage fan, and let's be honest, who isn't? I'm sure this is one not to miss. It looks like you may clash with Shikari, though, so if you're a Shikari fan, chances are you're not going to see this. That'll be a huge shame, because I think I would like to see him in hindsight, really. Hopefully they don't clash and we can catch a little bit. Tom Morello gets an amber download dog. Up next is Silverstein on the Avalanche stage, and these guys have 1,392,489 monthly listeners. Silverstein, it's one of them, I'm sure, like the elder emo Facebook groups that I'm part of. This is something that I don't quite know. I don't know if it's an American thing. I mean, if there's any British listeners listening and you can fill me in, but Silverstein must have just passed me by completely. I'm expecting they were the same kind of era as Funeral for a Friend. Incredibly popular, as I mentioned, but maybe I was just too young. Who knows? Top 4 songs on Spotify all have like the minimum listener count for the top 4 songs is 42 million. It's obviously me. I've missed these guys, and I don't know what they're like, and it's not really my cup of tea now. Maybe if I grew up and listened to it, yes, but listening now, it just sounds a bit, you had to be there scenario. Red Download Dog for Sylvenstein. That's the vampire cover band, Sylvenstein. Okay. Next band is Ne Obliviscaris. Why is everything so difficult to say now? They're on the Dogtooth stage with 97,251 monthly listeners. It's fun to say Ne Obliviscaris, but honestly, it's not for me. Just the songs that I did listen to, it's like 90% orchestral, metal, instrumental. Odd bit of vocal dropped in. That's just not me. I'd be bored. So, yep. Swiftly moving on. Red Download Dog for, I'm going to say it again, Ne Obliviscaris. Okay. Next band is The Offspring on the Apex stage with 19,617,666 monthly listeners on Spotify. Honestly, The Offspring has been on my bucket list for as long as I can remember. It's a band that I've never caught. I don't even think they've frequently toured, so I could have gone and seen them. So it really is heartbreaking considering that they could clash with someone. We'll get to who they could potentially clash with shortly. But it's like they're always just out of reach, unfortunately. I'm sure we all know them. The anthems that they've got is ridiculous. Kids aren't alright. You're going to go far, kid. Self-esteem. Pretty fly for a white guy. Want you bad. I love them. As a kid, my parents had Americana on CD, and I can just vividly remember the artwork inside and out when you used to just have this CD in a case that you could touch and feel and flick through the book. The blonde kid on the front with like a giant insect, and then on the back the kid was just a pool of blood. Yeah, I love them. It'll be a great shame if I do miss them. I am going to put a green Download Dog, but that's just in the hopes that I can catch the start or even the end of the set. Next band is While She Sleeps on the Opus stage with 957,943 monthly listeners. That really took me by surprise, to be honest. I didn't realise the listener count was that high. That's very near 1 million, which is, I never expected that, honestly. If you haven't guessed, they are the band that I'm very torn with for The Offspring. Because I love The Offspring, I'd love to see them, never seen them, but if While She Sleeps are there, there's no question I'll be seeing While She Sleeps. One of me and my wife's favourite bands. We've been there from the very beginning. I remember first seeing them when they were supporting Asking Alexandria at the O2 Academy in Birmingham. And then not long after that, we saw them play the Slade Rooms in Wolverhampton. Anyone from the Midlands, you may be aware of the Slade Rooms. It's closed now, unfortunately. But it's owned by I believe it was the bassist in Slade. But at that venue, I reckon there was probably around 70 people in there, including me and my wife. And I did a bit of Googling, and the tickets to see While She Sleeps were £8. How ridiculous is that? I can't remember the last time I paid less than 30 quid for a ticket. So to see that we paid £8 to see While She Sleeps is bizarre. But if we fast forward from there 10 years, we've now seen them headline Alexandra Palace, sub-headlining the second stage at Download Festival. Taking those two things, tiny room at the Slade Rooms to sub-headlining the second stage at Download Festival, you can't help but feel pride in the bands that you grew up with. I'm sure this was a case for like our parents, or if you're old enough to remember the big bands, the OGs growing up. I'm sure it's the same feeling that you guys get. They put on an incredible show, honestly, and I reckon I can promise this is going to be the most energy that you're going to see all weekend. While She Sleeps on the second stage, incredible. On about it being on the same day as Shikari, my brain is struggling to comprehend what that's going to be like. So it's going to be from Shikari, and the next band I'm seeing is While She Sleeps on the second stage. That is incredible. Like, you won't be disappointed if you do that band, those two bands, one after the other. It's going to be the moment of the weekend, I think. If you haven't listened to them, you really need to. You won't be disappointed. And if they stay on the same trajectory as they are, as I've mentioned, I was very surprised they had so many monthly listeners. I think these guys are going to end up being Download Festival headliners in the future. We've had it with Bring Me the Horizon. I think we're going to have it with Architect. I think we're going to have it with Parkway. And I definitely think While She Sleeps are going to be up there with them as well. If you haven't guessed already, these guys get a red. I'm joking. These guys get a green download dog. Next band is Holding Absence on the Avalanche stage. These guys have 1,402,220 monthly listeners. That's a big number. I struggled with that number. They're pretty good. They're not in any of my playlists, or they're not in my frequent rotation of bands. But I do rate them. The British dude's doing well and they're sounding good whilst doing it. What's not to love? Afterlife is actually forever ingrained into my brain. When my wife has obsessions with songs, they're just constantly on. So yeah, that song it's in there and it's not coming out. They actually played the first slot at the Download Pilot. I remember getting there and it was tipping it down, and we really struggled, but we finally managed to find a place to pitch, and we got there just in time to catch the start of Holding Absence, and they were good. It was like a pinch me moment that we were actually seeing a live band. So incredible. First live performance in, I'm trying to think how many months. I can't even remember. Looking back, the last band we saw live prior to lockdown was the 1975. That was in Birmingham on the 25th of February 2020. We went in lockdown on the 23rd of March 2020. And then the Download Pilot wasn't until June the 18th, 2021. How bizarre is that? So from February the 25th, 2020, I didn't see none of us did. None of us saw a live performance until June the 18th, 2021. That is bizarre. I'm so glad we're back. I'm so glad we're back to normal and we can enjoy Download again. Thank God for that. Holding Absence get, I'd say, a well-deserved amber download dog. The next band is Dying Fetus. Dogtooth stage, they have 216,948 monthly listeners. It's the kind of band I'd expect to see at Bloodstock. Even if they're at Bloodstock, I wouldn't intend to see them. They're not my cup of tea. Swiftly moving on, they get a red download dog. Up next is Pantera on the Opus stage with 5,844,732 monthly listeners on Spotify. So they were never a band that I grew up listening to, which is often the case for bands that you end up loving, like Metallica I grew up listening to, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne. You know, these are the bands that you love when you're growing up, and then when you reach musical maturity, you love these bands. But Pantera were never one of those. The most I'd probably say I even heard them was Avenged Sevenfold covering Walk at the LBC. That was literally it. And I think Cowboys from Hell was maybe on one of the Guitar Hero. I think so, anyway. I'll catch the start, I think, before heading to Fall Out Boy, but I'm not expecting I'll know the first songs. I literally know Cowboys from Hell and Walk, and I very much doubt they're going to be playing either of those first. So they get an amber download dog. Up next is Billy Talent on the Avalanche stage with 2,789,518 monthly listeners. So I do like Billy Talent, live anyway. I wouldn't put an album on to listen to, but when you see them live, there's the energy and it does just sound good. I remember seeing them the first time, Download 2017, maybe, on the second stage. I remember seeing them there anyway. But they are very much in Clash City. While She Sleeps, Offspring, Pantera, Fall Out Boy. I'm very doubtful I'm going to catch them, but I'm not heartbroken because, like I say, they're good, but I wouldn't go out my way to see them. They get an amber download dog. Next up is Fear Factory on the Dogtooth stage. They have 839,276 monthly listeners. Another band that I think I was just too young to catch. I'd never even heard of Fear Factory until I think I'd be lying if I said I'd heard of them before this lineup. Not one that was ever mentioned in like friendship groups or heard them on Kerrang or anything like that. So they're completely new to me. They are sick, and I can imagine there'll be class in the Dogtooth. There's one or two tunes that do really stand out to me. Lynch Fist. They're thick, and it's pretty industrial, I want to say. So I think it will be good. But because Fall Out Boy's on, and they're on at the same time, we'll get onto them now. But that's who I'm going to be seeing. Fear Factory get an Amber download dog. Amber because they're good, but I didn't want to give them a red, but I won't be seeing them. So our headliners for the Saturday is Fall Out Boy. They are obviously on the Apex stage, and they absolutely blow it out the park for monthly listeners. I think this is the most monthly listeners out of every band on the lineup. 24,499,991 monthly listeners. So, Fall Out Boy, here we bloody go. It's weird though, man, because prior to this lineup, I never considered myself a Fall Out Boy fan. I like the popular tunes like Sugar We Going Down, Dance Dance, This Ain't a Scene, but I never delved deeper. I never actually had an album or listened to an album start to finish. The release My Songs Know What They Did You Did in the Dark. It was on Kerrang, and at this stage I was like, yeah, that band's... I'm done with that band. If this is the way they're going, it's not for me. So they just went in the metaphorical music bin, and I never listened to any of their older stuff because I thought, meh, whatever. I've listened to the best stuff with those singles I've just mentioned. Now, we have actually already covered Fall Out Boy on Dear Download. That's obviously with my good friends Adam and Simon. So if you haven't listened to that, please do go and listen to that. And whilst you're at it, we've got Queens of the Stone Age and Avenged Sevenfold also. So if you haven't checked them out, please do. That's a Dear Download. But each one of those episodes, I went into quite a bit of depth in regards to like the research and listening to set lists, listening to other interviews they've done with people. And let me tell you, I had a Fall Out Boy awakening. I don't know what it was. I listened to the current set list for research, and I genuinely think from around February to now, I've probably listened to that set list over 100 times. I don't know what it is. It's like a drug. I just wanted more and more. There's no other band on the lineup that has made me do that, and no other band that makes me sing along like Fall Out Boy do. I've ended up learning pretty much their entire set list word for word. So I hope you're not stood next to me because I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to show up Patrick Stump on stage, do I? Standout tunes, obvious ones for me are Love from the Other Side, The Phoenix, Grand Theft Autumn, Disloyal Order of Water Buffaloes, and Fake Out. Like, these tunes are ace. Like, it's weird though, because prior to this, when they got announced, I was like, oh, Fall Out Boy, they're not a download band. They're not going to have walls of death and all this kind of shit, but Fall Out Boy are the one for me. Okay, next to Busted, I think this is going to be the performance of the weekend, which is probably the least metal thing I've ever said, but at least you can never accuse me of gatekeeping anyway. So, that's it. That's the Saturday bands. We've had a good go of it. Gone through every single band. How was it for you? Did you enjoy yourself? I don't know where I was going with that. How was it for you in terms of, did I get many of the same bands for yourself? Are there any green bands that you're going to see me singing not very well to? Are we going to bump into each other? Is there an amber band that you're really torn on that you can't decide whether to go for A or B? Let me know. If you go and follow me on Instagram, I will put a post which is essentially for this episode. So if you've got any questions or you just want to make a comment on the episode, if you just leave a comment underneath there, I'll reply to you and we'll have a little chat. Talking about Instagram, other socials, we've obviously got TikTok and YouTube. If you go to my link tree, which will be in the episode description, you'll find all of those listed out nicely and easily to just click on and get to. I did mention at the start of the episode that it would be really, really nice if we reached 500 subs before download. So if you aren't already subscribed, please do. We've got our little packing video that I've done so far, and I do have intentions of doing a few other bits. And then, of course, there is going to be the Download 2024 vlog this year. If you haven't already checked out my vlog from last year, please do. Hopefully you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, there you go. You've got your reason to subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. Love you all. Don't forget to get your 10% off at Fat Frank's with code SMTV10. And thank you again to my Patreons. You are the reason that I keep doing this. Love you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.